Safe from harm.
I feel furious! Ayan mo na. Ayan. Ayan mo na.
Diba? Pero maalat yun kasi sa
Hi, everybody. I am the QA manager at ArenaNet. So I work with everything that goes out for Guildwars 2. I don't make it, I don't develop it, but I help guide it and help make sure that it's the best product we can make.
How about you, Joe?
All right. Hey everyone, I'm Joe Kimmis. I do game design on Guild Wars 2 and work on some of the story updates, releases, as well as festivals, and the occasional Guild Wars 1 update.
Awesome. Hi, Kirk.
Hey folks, I'm Kirk Williford. I'm a senior game designer at ArenaNet and a team lead here as well on Guild Wars 2.
Cool. So all three of you have had a super busy year. You certainly haven't been busy. You haven't been bored, have you? Why don't you each give a rundown of what you've worked on the past year and what you've all had your hand in? And this time, let's go Kirk, Joe, Esther.
Sure. So past year, my brain has lost track of what time is at this point. So I guess
start with Bound by Blood.
Yeah, Bound by Blood was the first thing in the past year, in which I did a story instance and some of the meta events in that map, as well as some side events and stuff. From there, I helped work on some polish and touch-up stuff on Shadow in the Ice, episode 2. And then I was team lead for episode 3 and 4, which was No Quarter and Jormag Rising. So.
Cool.
All right. I'm going next, right?
Yes, you are.
Okay. So, fortunately, I can track it by festival releases. So we had Halloween last year, then Winter's Day, Lunar New Year. Let's see which came out first. I was the team lead on the team that made the Visions of the Past Steel and Fire episode. and then April Fool's Day, Super Adventure Festival, the Guildwars 1. What are we up to? 15th anniversary.
Yeah.
Dragon Bash, and we are right now in Guild Wars 2. You can play Festival to 4 wins, so get in there and finish up your meta. You've got about 1 week left.
I don't have time. Go ahead, Esther.
Well, like I said, I don't make the game. I just help it become the best it can be. And so I've been involved with all of the things listed and building gear templates. Anything that goes out goes through QA, and I rely on my embeds and my analysts to tell me where our issues are and to make sure that everyone is aware if we have enough time. So all of Living World, all the quality of life. One of my people helped Joe with Guild Wars 1. I have an analyst who loves Guild Wars 1, and anything that comes up, he owns it. So basically, I get to see everything everybody else makes and tell them how awesome it is.
That sounds good. And point of fact, you do in fact work on the game because you help us get it live.
เอาไม่ตาย
So it absolutely
Yeah, you could
counts,
list all
and
that
you
stuff.
are awesome. Yeah, totally. So I want to hear about what some of your highlights over the past year were. What were some of your favorite things? Joe, I'm going to have you go through some of yours first, partly because I really like the pictures that you shared.
All right, got my highlights reel, I think.
Yeah.
Okay, well, let's see. So, definitely for me, one of the big highlights of last year was, like I mentioned, the Steel and Fire episode coming out.
makes me sick.
We had a ton of fun making that, and we kind of got the opportunity to play around a little and do something a little different for an update. The idea with that one was we put a team on doing a story kind of update that didn't necessarily have to like have all the same components as we would normally do. Like, for example, it didn't have a new open world map, or and didn't quite. It continued the story, but in sort of a side story fashion. So we had a little room to play around there, and got to do a mission I really enjoyed helping build in the Forging Steel mission, where you play as one of the new recruits of the Steel Warband and meet Ryland and his team and kind of get a more intimate look at them than you would get to do as the commander. And it just turned into one of my favorite things because we got to have sort of the situation of being Ryland's warband and figuring out, okay, like, what challenges are they going to face? Like, we want to have them going up through this mountain pass, and we want to use the mount technology that we're developing to have a tank that you can actually jump into and, like, get on the turrets. And then we're like, all right, like, who are you going to fight? Because we don't really want to have you fighting just whoever, or make this like you've been fighting in previous episodes. And we ended up picking the Stone Summit Dwarves, who were a recurring villain from Guild Wars 1. And so we got to learn a little about what they've been up to, and like you fight this kind of remnant faction of them that is somehow still around through dark magics and terrible decisions that they've made. Which also meant that we got to reuse the Forgeman as the climactic boss of that whole mission. So I kind of got to like live my personal dream of making a mission where we got to ride around in a tank and shoot a giant robot.
And that's what it's all about. Yeah, I remember that Forge.
We got this picture of that showdown. I think this picture I fished up from some early a prototype version of the map, where this was the first time we had kind of all the art coming together on this guy, and I got this picture to show to the rest of the studio. Yes, it was just the moment we had that all come together, I was like, all right, this is actually going to be really cool. I'm really excited about this.
Yeah, that moment it starts to gel is always such a fun one.
Yeah. and the rest of my team just did an incredible job putting this together. Like, we were kind of like, oh yeah, we'll reuse the Forgeman, and like, I guess we'll have to change out its beam attack because it's kind of purpose-built for the dungeon it was in before. And, you know, let's ask the artists if we can get a second arm on that guy, because you fought the Forgeman in one of the early dungeons in Guild Wars 2, and it only has one arm compared to the Guild Wars 1 incarnation. So we asked the artists, hey, like, okay, can we get this with a second arm? I know it probably doesn't have the animation for that, but, you know, don't spend too much time. It doesn't have to be, you don't have to fully convert it to the Guild Wars 1 version. We just wanted to evoke the Guild Wars 1 version a little more.
Right.
Because the other one you fight is also kind of scrap built by the dredge out of parts, as far as you know. And like, they came back with like, okay, here's the version with 2 arms. We're gonna work on it a little more. I'm like, hey, this is looking great. Like, it's good at this point. And then they came back with just this incredible version of it that has like lava vents and all this stuff going on.
I like when our teams get excited and they're like, but wait, there's more. I'm not done with this. I'm gonna make it even more awesome. So you guys did a good job on that.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun. I hope people enjoyed it.
Do you want to talk about the sword from that episode?
Yeah, sure. So that's another element where like we really got to make kind of the best of what we were imagining. So a big thing we tried to hit on in the Steel and Fire release was fleshing out Ryland's character more and letting you see more of him, because as you know now, he was going to be quite a bit more important as the story continued. And up until then, you'd kind of just seen him in passing. Like, you see him during the prologue release, just kind of around, and he hangs out with Bram, but you don't hang out with him. He's just kind of standing around next to Bangar a bunch. And this was our chance to see him, for one, when he's not hanging out with Bangar, and you see kind of another side of his personality when he's with his warband, and there's some camaraderie. But we also had to figure out, like, an early question we had was, all right, like, has anyone decided what class Ryland is? Like, do we know what his deal is? We see him fighting a little bit, but it's just kind of generic greatsword stuff in the prologue. So we had some brainstorms about, like, what's Ryland's deal? What's going to make him exciting? We're going to have this story mission where you play as him. So, like, what makes him interesting there? And the big thing we kept hitting on was there were a couple incarnations where we wanted to kind of play off his relationship with Britlock and what's similar about them and what's different about them. And something that we kept thinking about to show that visually was like, all right, maybe like, is Ryland more like technological? Like, maybe he's an engineer, or does he have gadgets that he uses? And that sets him apart from Britlock, who, between his magical sword and revenant powers, has a much more kind of mystic feel to him. And we kind of like went around on that. Like, for a while, he had like grappling hooks and like grenade launchers and stuff. We backed off that a little, but the thing that we kept from that series of brainstorming was the idea that Ritlock has his magic sword, the Fiery Dragon Sword from Guild Wars 1. And we wanted to kind of have the parallel of that, where, and that became like, all right, so Ryland will have his own fire sword, but it's technological, right? And we went through a couple rounds of like, all right, so he has a flamethrower sword.
Came within
That's
a
cool.
shout of my daughter.
And
Doc.
like, all right, so there was an earlier like, all right, he's an engineer and he has a tech sword, so we have a chainsaw sword. And at some point, we put those together. This is my concept art that I drew on one of our whiteboards back at the office of the chainsaw flame sword that became the flame saw later. We actually sent this to the artists along with some other reference, and I was incredibly pleased that they were like, all right, we'll make that, I guess. There was an incarnation of it where we tried to have the torches on it spinning chainsaw-like. It didn't really work. You couldn't tell what was going on. But I am incredibly, incredibly happy about how that turned out. And it became this very, very unique and fun thing that you got to do as Ryland, is
Not worth the effort.
break out the flame saw, and we've got a unique saw animation for him to like press it against things and burn through them.
The concept art is fantastic. I personally would buy a print of that. I'm not sure what I'd do with it, but it would entertain me. So you got your chainsaw flame sword concept art. And then it was time for April Fool's, just about. You get to work on things.
Oh yeah, okay, we had set some pictures of that too. All right, so April Fool's, every year we try to do some kind of cool thing with the players, or you know, some little joke going on. In past years, we've done stuff like, let's see, I think, was it the first year or the second year that we had bobblehead mode? The Super Adventure Box itself was an April Fool's joke one year, and we've kind of gradually tried to migrate it towards being a festival rather than our April Fool's joke and Super Adventure Box always fighting each other. We did Sitting in Chairs, which is something I also worked on, and I'm still a huge fan of the trailer for that. Go look it up.
That was really good.
This year, we kind of fell back on one of my team's recurring jokes of like cats are always funny. So the April Fool's gag we did was you get sent a letter by a character who has shown up occasionally in text, King of All Cats, who tells you a bunch of really important things that you can't read because it's written in cat, but also sends you a few tonics that you can use to, I don't know, peer beyond the veil and see invisible cats that you couldn't see before.
Fantastic.
And so, while you have this tonic, one, cats start just appearing around you at all times, and two, in certain areas of the game, all the capital cities and you can see these giant cats just like looming on the horizon. And the amount of work that went into making giant invisible cats was actually kind of surprising. There's some engine details that made it resist the concept of giant cats. Like, you're not supposed to see anything that's too far away from you. So you can see on the upper left there's the giant cat looming on the horizon. This is because when we made the giant cat visible from very far away, the wall it's behind wasn't visible from that far away. So you just see the floating cat.
Swift and steady.
And also, I can't actually place a giant cat just floating. It's supposed to be on the ground because it's a cat. So all the giant cats have this like hand-built offset where they are actually standing on the ground somewhere safe, but have a buff on them that causes them to float 1,000 feet up, 500 feet back, or whatever for each individual cat.
Yeah. Just to get them
but-
each one exactly where you want it.
Yep. And that all came together though, and like one of my favorite details was the audio team came to us and they're like, "Hey, what's going on for April Fools?" And we're like, "Well, there's all this stuff with these giant cats. We've already kind of got cat sounds, so we figured we'll just use those." And they're like, "Well, we'll check it out. We'll see what we can do." And they came back a couple days later with, for one, as these cats phase in and out around you, they have this incredible, like, they make a kind of mystical sounding meow noise that also, like, as they vanish, it cuts out, as if, they were meowing and then got portaled and
Just
now you don't
disappeared.
hear it anymore.
Yeah.
And
Awesome.
every couple minutes, I think, if you have the tonic effect on, enter in a zone with a giant cat, you will hear the giant cat's, like, deep foghorn-like meow.
Fantastic.
So, that was way
So-
more than I expected, and I really enjoyed it.
You've had some fun highlights this past year. I know I know we're all been super busy. You guys have all been rolling from one piece of content to the next, to the next, to the next right away. So getting to pause and play around and do fun stuff like that is, I imagine, a nice breather.
For sure.
So Esther, can we talk about some of your highlights of the past year? Because you've had a super interesting year.
It's fine. This year's been.
Oh,
No, this year has been awesome. I mean, if you ask the things that stuck out of my head, Kirk's game, and hopefully you'll talk about it a little bit in the prologue, was a particular favorite because it was using technology that I am terrified of, and he made it work and work well, and I am much less terrified now that everybody wants to use it. But collaborating with the teams, I get to work with each of the individual development teams on each episode or feature with the engineers and the artists to a point. And so all of it is just been watching everybody just work really hard to get everything out has been amazing to watch. And them being receptive to my team telling them there's issues, like there's bugs, and they are like, okay, we'll fix them. Like the relationship that we have as a team with QA and design and engineering and art and everybody else, it's just been really professionally rewarding at ArenaNet, and this year especially, as we've had all these extra challenges working from home.
yeah, and we're going to get to that too, because I do want to touch on that. I know we've done a guild chat about working from home, but there's a lot there as far as how it relates shipping the game. Kirk, Esther mentioned those new tools, and I do know you had it in your list to talk about. Do you want to elaborate on that a little bit?
Sure, yeah. I still remember how that first conversation with Esther went. It's like, I walked over to her desk.
Oh, no.
I was like, so, I'd like to do an event where you're on a bunch of moving platforms in the open world. And she's like, okay, it's fine. Yeah,
This is
all
fine.
the credit there really goes to Joel. That was an event that when I was building it and blocking it out, I didn't think it would end up being as technically taxing as it might have ended up being. And he was my lifesaver more than once on that. Just trying to get that stuff working. The thing that Esther is talking about in general is moving platforms. It's something that you kind of take for granted when you see them, because it's like, oh yeah, it's just a platform that moves. But a lot goes into getting that working right. For a while we had an issue where your character would. So if you were on a moving platform so to give some context to it, in Prologue there's an event where you're on a moving platform shooting targets in the air, just balloons, right? It's like a training exercise for adolescent Char. And essentially what happens is you stand on the platform looking around in like almost a third-person shooter mode and clicking targets to shoot at them, but you're not moving your character most of the time. And so what we're running into is that even though you're technically moving, your client or the game didn't think you had moved until since the last time that you actually physically, like pressing your WASD or arrow keys or however you move around in the game, right? So, oh hi cat.
Hey, how are you?
So essentially what happened is, yeah, hidden cat. There you go. Thanks, Joe. Press the button.
Good work,
So
Joe.
what happened is you'd shoot the gun, and your missile, your projectile from the gun would come shoot out of the gun from way down where you used to be. And it's like, what the heck is going on? Like, we couldn't figure out what was happening. And then Joel, like I said, was just the savior there and looked into it a whole bunch. It's like, oh, this is what's happening. And him and I worked together a whole bunch, to get that thing working. And that event is special to me from Prologue, along with the Char Chef event, just because that episode a lot, like, the team was able to do so many cool, unique things in that episode that we haven't really done before, like those two events and like Connor's awesome concert, and like Frosty's Flame Legion stuff. There's just a lot of cool little fun things here in the entire episode that was just exciting to make, even though it was still technically challenging. So,
Yeah, building a whole new event and trying to figure out how to use new tools was a thing that I know you had to fiddle with and terrify Esther for a little while. But I feel like you made it work, and this is a little bit later episode, I think. But do you want to talk about working with cinematics to get Bangar's speech up and running?
Sure. That actually was the same episode. So,
Okay, I was like,
end of
was
Bound
it
by
0 or 1?
It's the final instance of Bound by Blood. So spoilers, if you haven't
Thank
played the prologue, first you should go do that. But at the very end of the episode, Bangar gives a rousing speech to all of the now Dominion Char that have followed him into the Shiver Peaks. And that was a moment that we wanted to feel very cinematic and really, build up Bangar for what he is and what his character is becoming, right? But we didn't really have the time to make it a full-fledged cinematic. So that was a case of I worked together with Chelsea, our cinematics lead, and she kind of coached. I'm not a cinematics artist by any means, so she coached me into the best cinematography techniques, the pans, the zooms, all that good, those technical terms, all that good stuff. And on my end, I was building a rather admittedly complicated, probably more than it needed to be, system of in-game cameras that kind of redirect and act as if it's moving around like a cinematic would. And that was really fun in just learning the cinematic technical side as well as trying to get that working in-game as an in-game cinematic. That was another one that was really tricky, and it, there's a lot of things to learn from it, but we used it in the first instance of that episode as well. Because it turned out it's we could maybe get some more use out of this, and I think it was used in another episode as well. But yeah, so it's just really exciting going through that and iterating with her, and she gave me so much helpful feedback and direction the entire way. Just being able to collaborate with cinematics more directly, than design might at other times. That was really fun and exciting.
So I do want to. We have a lot of ground to cover today, so I'm trying to keep us on track. I want to make sure that you talk about a more community side thing too, because you helped do the work to get the winners of our friendships contest into the game, didn't you?
You will soon meet
Yes.
your makers.
Yeah, I worked together with Annie, who will be on later, Shane Michael, one of our narrative designers, Bobby Stein, who's a, I don't know, I think, my echo's going off. 1 moment, please. The good times of home living. Anyway, so working with Bobby Stein as well, narrative lead. I think he's actually narrative design manager. I don't remember his term. Anyway, all of them work together, getting the friendships context winners in. Trying to figure out the best way to have it feel like they're part of the world, and interacting with the world. And it's just really exciting because it shows the passion of our players of the game. They're really excited about it, which makes us excited about it. We like to acknowledge that kind of stuff as much as we can. So that's really fun. And Annie did an awesome job putting together the composites based on the looks that we were sent. So it really looked like their characters. And then Shane Michael and Bobby both helped write their blurbs in game that they talked to you with. So it was all coming together, and it was a really fun side project for all of us to work on. To it's not just because it was a contest, but it's also acknowledging the community that we're all a part of. So that was really neat.
Yeah, definitely. Quick question: did your echo go off for the reason I think it went off?
No.
Oh, okay. Darn. I got excited.
I wish. No.
That's okay. It still might.
It's telling me to close my windows.
Oh, okay. Well, I guess if you need to go do that, you can.
You think you can defeat me?
I want to spend a little bit of time talking to all three of you about the challenges and how you've worked around having to work from home. Some of us are thousands of miles away. but none of us are in the office where we can just walk over to each other's desks, or hey, can we grab a room real quick to talk about this, or hey, random kitchen meeting. Do you guys just want to talk a little bit about the past, like, 8 months?
It's been like a week, right?
Esther, it's like the 350th of March. Time has no meaning for any of us anymore. Esther, I'll start with you because yours is kind of wild.
So I am actually not in Washington right now. I am down at my mother's house in Arizona. I left Washington at the end of March and marathoned it down here. I don't recommend that, by the way. That sucked. I had some family things I needed to help out with, and I've been here ever since, kind of helping with families. So I am spending the worst season to not be in Washington. Like, this is when you want to be there, and I'm down here. But it worked out because we're working from home, but it's hard. It's watching, I can't, like Ruby said, Kirk, you'll remember this. I can't go over and stare at someone until they write their documentation. It wasn't Kirk, his was written. I can't just pull someone in a room and have a conversation or anything like that. And so it's been hard. Cool thing is I'm going home on Friday. I'm very excited. And where I go home to is I've been in this kind of larger home since the end of March. And I'm going back to my house, which is kind of small. And I think we have pictures of my house. Yeah, I live on a houseboat. That's 343 square feet. I love it. I miss it. But I'm going, like, that's all my stuff as we moved in. That's where my bed is. The descent into insanity that will happen. And there's the pooch and the lake. So we'll see and that was winter of 19, those huge snowstorms that we had. I think that was my favorite picture of that. It has limited electricity. I can't wash clothes and heat at the same time. There's a lot of challenges. It's wonderful, but my descent into insanity by Christmas may be entertaining for everyone else to watch. Because it is small, and when it gets cold, there's not a lot of time to spend outside. And I have a buddy that's going to hang out with me. So it makes it a little bit easier.
So how are you getting back home? Are you marathoning back up?
I'm going to marathon to my brother's in the Bay Area, and then kind of, because California's burning, evaluate. I may be there for a little while, and then I'll be back. The idea being I don't want to stay in a hotel. I want to have as little contact with other people as possible, and then I'll quarantine for 2 weeks when I get home.
Can I ask one more question? Can I ask that you share the name of your houseboat? You don't have to.
Do you want the name it is or the name I want to make it? Because those are two different things.
Oh, I only know one, so...
Yeah. When it was sold to me, it is Totes My Boats. It's on the legal documents. But, seriously, yeah, so I may or may not change it. But, so I'll tell a little bit of story behind it. When I first started playing when I first started working at ArenaNet and was inside the game and everything, my brain took... I swore there was a zone called Sparklefly Fen for like a year.
Oh, right.
Yeah, corrected me. I'm like, no, and I actually pulled up the map. I'm like, oh, I'm totally wrong. So I've been trying to get something called Sparklefly Fen in the game forever, and if I change the name of my boat, it will be the Sparklefly Fen. I have the things that came in the mail. If you
go for it. Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. So, we have masks from By Fans for Fans. It is I have the Quaggan. These came like yesterday. I have the Quaggan, and I have the cactus guys. What are they called?
Fools.
Crush
the invaders.
Trying to get it on the screen. And these are By Fans that came in the mail. Pretty well. I'm happy with them. I'm excited to use them on my trip back home.
Forward, men, to the heart of their
Well,
fortress.
drive safe. Be very, very careful. And we in the boat will be glad to have you back
Gate
home.
is down. Break this, spirits. in this
Kirk,
area
how's
is ours.
how's pandemic life going for you? I see you got a home air conditioner.
Yeah, that has been a necessary giant. You know, it's hot. You know, that's something that we kind of took for granted going into the office every summer. Is we're in an air-conditioned office during the hottest part of the day, and now I'm in a smaller room with a very warm PC. So that's been fun. But pandemic life has been okay. You know, trying to hope everyone stays safe and takes it seriously. But I still remember kind of how that conversation went back in first March. Whereas now we're what, in 7th, 5th? I don't know, some March.
I have no idea.
Yeah, because we were in the middle of episode 3's development at the time, and it was just like, how are we going to do this? You know, because we have obviously never had to deal with something like this before. And just trying to, like Esther said, you know, I can't walk over to her desk and say, hey, can we use moving platforms anymore? I have to call her on Teams and beg for forgiveness. You know, but we make do, and as I've said before, you know, our IT team and producers, they really did an awesome job of getting us online really quickly, so we were able to have, you know, not too much downtime and get back on track, you know, so just trying to learn how to communicate with folks and learn that, you know, I'm not as introverted as I thought I was in terms of, oh, I'm at home, it's fine, you know. No, I need people. I need to see people. Because as a designer, I can't look, you know, turn around and be like, hey, Annie, what do you think about this idea? I got a pitch for you, you know. Or, hey, Eric, come take a look at this. I might need some programming bits for it. You know, so it's a lot more complicated and more communication is necessary. But we've all learned to become better communicators because of it. You know, documentation has to be super clear. We have to be very precise in how we're vocalizing or typing things in Teams. Tone is impossible to tell via text. So, you know, giving and receiving feedback, you need to be very aware of how you're doing that. So that's been interesting, but it's been a good learning experience. But I look forward to the day where we can all come back together and have a waffle party or something. So.
Oh man, yeah, release day waffles have not been a thing.
Yeah.
That is, I do want to touch on, you mentioned that tone is impossible to convey, and I was thinking about that a week or so ago. I got a private message on Teams from another employee who just was like, hey, I just wanted to apologize. I feel like I was really snappy with you and I was rude and I'm very sorry. And I'm sitting there going, I don't know what you're talking about, but okay. And he clarified, and it was, if we were in the office, that would have been a 2-second conversation shouted across our pod. So it is, I mean, it sounds like such a little thing, but it does add such a huge extra layer to every single interaction that we're having right now.
For sure.
So, in our last few minutes, how about you, Joe?
Yeah, so I think for me, the big excitement was back in March. We were like, okay, hey everyone, this might be a thing. Make sure you have your home workstations all set up. It's taken care of now. So in a hurry if it becomes a thing. And my team was in the midst of, finishing up Sylvari. At that moment, we were like, all right, fine, I'll take care of it, whatever. And then it became a thing, and we were like, oh, okay, everyone, just, best practices, start working from home.
Right.
And, we'll see where it goes. We'll reevaluate this next week. And we're like, hey, we're a week from shipping our thing. From Sylvari.
The concept of we'll reevaluate this next week now seems so weird.
We did that a couple times.
Yeah.
And so we were like, all right, no big deal. Since stuff is in the final stages of the pipeline, we weren't going to change it much anyway, right? Or the store would be really mad at us.
Strength
So-
in numbers.
We were like,
Oh, yeah.
okay, work from home. We can be working on, follow-up bug fixing updates. We need to, and surely we'll be back in the office for the actual ship, right? Everyone will just stay home for a week. This will all go over, and we'll be good to go. And it became increasingly like, okay, we're not coming back to the office, and
I feel furious.
so, like, the release day, we were figuring out, okay, like, how are we playing the game from home while still checking emails and phones, coordinating all of that. It's hugely different. I think, like, the night before that release, we had a really severe bug show up. And coordinating that with everyone who was in different states of working from home or different states of availability was a whole lot of fun, and I was really impressed by the team coming together and getting that figured out and getting through it.
We were still learning
for-
at that point. We were still learning
yeah.
how to do this.
You would get to the final boss of the chapter, and if you happened to use stealth during a particular attack, they would just lock up